So I'm from New York originally, played ball at Louisville, football and baseball, a long time ago. Coached college ball for 15 years, was in the NFL for 13. I was a combine scout, you're all familiar with that. And then, let me see, that was 4 years with Jacksonville, 7 with Cleveland. Then I was with ESPN for a while, and then most recently 4 years with the CFL. So I've seen every which way you can see something. As a football player, I've seen it. So I've been in players' homes, as a recruiting an athlete at a high school, all the way to negotiating contracts in the CFL. Didn't do much of that in the NFL. Most scouts don't deal with agents that much as NFL scouts, unless you're director or whatever. I'm going to just give you just a couple of brief thoughts that I have, just in general, because I think that scouting, the scouting profession and the personnel profession, and what you all do, there's a lot of tie-ins there, in my opinion. And you probably, a lot of this may seem redundant, or you already know it, so you might not get a lot out of it, but it's just the basics that I think of the industry as far as personnel, evaluating personnel, identifying players. And I think the 4 years that I've dealt with a lot of agents, I didn't deal with Drew Rosenhaus too much, okay, in the CFL. I mean, I just didn't. I did every once in a while, but so I was dealing with other folks, and quite frankly, sometimes I didn't feel like they were either educated enough or had a good enough feel for players and what level they could play at, what position even they could play at. I mean, sometimes it's not as obvious as you think. And the skill set is a little bit different with the CFL as it is the NFL. But I'll just say this, it's not an exact science. And like I listen to a lot of Mike and Mike. I just do. I either listen to it on the radio or watch it while I work out of my home a lot. Though, currently I don't have a job. So I got to listen to a lot of Mike and Mike. But I find it interesting that a lot of coaches or people like both Mikes, especially Golick, why do they measure these guys? Why do they time them? It's just so goofy and all that. If you're sitting in a draft room on the other side, and you're a personnel director, a GM, and you're going to give a guy $1 million or more, every single thing matters. Okay, you have to understand that. LaDainian Tomlinson, when I was driving up, I live in Louisville. He was saying, boy, it was so strange to walk out there in my underwear, because that's one of the first things they do. They get weighed and measured in front of 200 middle-aged guys, pretty much, or some now younger, and it's semi-embarrassing to them. But there's a lot that we get out of that, as far as arm length. Sometimes guys are not what you think they are, and you can see them up close. And I know that sounds a little strange, but all of that has validity to it. When you're on the other side and you're going to write a big contract for a player, or all the way down to a free agent. So the numbers matter. Let me just, if you don't understand that by now, that's one of the main things you should understand. When you're trying to identify an athlete, understand height, weight, and speed is a big deal, okay, per position. Obviously an offensive guard, it's not as important. Wide receiver, these are probably things that are obvious to you. And don't always go by the time that you read in Scouts Inc., ESPN Scouts Inc., or wherever you get your information sometime. Those times, about half the time, aren't valid. They're just not. So make sure you understand that when you're going to evaluate players. I always say play the percentages. Play the percentages when you're looking for a player. I mean, if you're gonna represent 5 receivers, let's say you have 5 receivers, and 4 of them are 5'8", 160 pounds, you're gonna be eating ramen noodles a lot. You just are. I mean, I know that's obvious, but it was almost shocking to me that some of the guys that were brought to me, and I'm like saying, they don't have a snowball's chance to be an NFL player. And really, CFL-wise, the skill set was such different, depending on the position. I was a little surprised, to put it that way. So Just remember that. Play the percentages. The faster, the bigger, the stronger they are. Obviously, production makes a difference. All those things make a difference. But it's just like Manziel. If you just take him, for instance. There's this much difference. One guy says take him in the first round. I have a good friend that's been a scout in the NFL for a long time, played quarterback in college. He does all the quarterbacks. That's one of the things he does. He's a national guy for a particular team. He's scratching his head. He doesn't. There's no way this guy should be the first 5, picks in the draft. So, there's a lot of, it's not just a slam dunk. Peyton Manning was a slam dunk. Ryan Leaf, when I did him coming out, I saw him play live in the Apple Cup. He had a great game, but I still wouldn't have taken him over Peyton Manning, even though he had the pure throwing. He could spin the ball better than Peyton. There's a lot of things he could do better, but all the intangibles and all the different things given, there's no way this guy. There was a big boom or bust factor with him, a big boom or bust factor, and when you take a chance, when you take a guy first, second, third in that area, especially a quarterback. So play the percentages. I'm not going to go through all the Danny Warfel and Tebow. That's just. Sometimes they win national championships, they're Heisman Trophy winners, they can't play in the NFL for whatever reason. So it's not automatic. When I was a CFL director, I'd get agents call me, but he was in Jacksonville's camp. I don't care if he was in Jacksonville's camp. It doesn't equate to being a player in the CFL. So it doesn't automatically mean that they're good enough to play in the CFL. So. The biggest thing, and I won't go through I have kind of a long list of things, is identifying players. To me, if I were in your spot, the most important thing I could do, other than really tend to your client's needs, is identifying players. I think some agents do a great job because they bring me 8 or 10 guys, and 5 of them I think could play. And that's a good percentage. But I had agents bring me 8 or 10 guys, and 1 could play. Or 2 could play, and I'm saying, oh my goodness, this person's representing, putting money into it, time, effort, and I'm just, and then when I told them that, they didn't like me anymore, so they wouldn't, they wouldn't call me. I had, one guy, he just blew up at me, but all those players didn't go anyplace else. They didn't go anyplace else. So, I must have known a little bit what I was talking about. So identifying players, and I think that, hopefully I'll either cover that or not cover it, or you can ask me. But that's a very, very important thing. If I were doing what you're doing, that would be the main thing that I would want to be able to do. All right, Neil's got a bunch of questions for me, which is fine. Most NFL teams have 8 or 10 scouts that cover the country, and a national or Blesto scout. And I started out as a national scout here at this combine, way when it was quite a bit different. And so I, weighed and measured. I did all that early for 2 years. Then I went with Jacksonville, and I went with Cleveland. So, but they cover the country, but yet players still fall through the cracks. Yeah, players fall through the cracks, but really not that many. Not that many. If you're a good combine scout, and that's where most of these teams. Let me see. There's 32 teams. I'm trying to think. I think there's 5 or 6 that don't belong to the combine. They do it a little different. Patriots do it different, Baltimore does it different. But pretty much if you're a combine scout, the way I came up, if the guy has a chance at all, and you go to a college, whether it's Concord College in West Virginia or Notre Dame, you write the guy up. And what I mean by write, you write him up and you give him a grade. So when that list goes to teams, to NFL teams, their scout, Midwest scout, whatever, he gets that and he looks down and he says, oh, Concord College has got a guy. I don't care if it's as remote as it is, that guy gets covered in some way, shape, or form, okay? Or if he goes to Notre Dame or wherever. I wrote up backup players at Michigan because he was a backup offensive tackle, and he just happened not to play very much. I know it sounds strange. He's probably better than a kid from West Virginia State that starts. More than likely, he's better. So if the guy has height, weight, and speed, he should be on some type of list. So do players fall through the cracks? Yeah, not too many. There are some of the other reasons why every once in a while, a player will get dinged by his coach for whatever reason. He rolls rolled his eyes at the coach, or he did something off the field, or he badmouthed, or whatever the case may be. So it comes around, and coaches recommend players. And this doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while, a coach will that kid can't play. And he probably can play. So that's one of the reasons why he might fall through the cracks, or very few people will know about him. He could have got injured in his junior year. And there's a lot of times, there's a huge improvement between your junior and senior year. So you really don't know much about him in his senior year, and he only plays half the games because he's just coming off an injury, but yet he might have the ability to play in the NFL or the CFL. So that's two reasons. The other thing is, and it happens much for college football players nowadays with the training that happens at such a young age. Some are late bloomers. I mean, they just are. They might have played basketball until their junior year in high school, and then played 1 year of high school football and went someplace, and they got a big frame and all that, didn't play that much, but they're late bloomers. And so that's another reason why a player would fall through the cracks. Generally, do the best scouts are assigned to the best areas? The best areas in scouting, when you're a scout, an NFL scout, or even a CFL scout, the Southeast. The Southeast produces more high-round players. I mean, it just makes sense. I mean, with the Alabama, Auburns, all them, even the UABs, University of Miami. How many college teams are in the state of Florida? I mean, there's just, so just the Southeast, you have a ton of work to do down there. And then usually, and I had the Southeast for quite a long time, had the Midwest for a while, the Southeast for a while, and then I had half the country. I was a regional scout for 4 or 5 years. So I had from Boston University down to Miami, over to LSU, and up to Minnesota. So that's what I covered. But as a regional guy, you didn't go to maybe Alabama State because they only had 2 free agents. So you kind of went through that. You had an area guy that was under you. So usually you're asking the question about the best scouts in one region or another. Yeah, it should be the Southeast and it should be the West Coast. But, and that's what shocks me a little bit, sometimes they'll just take a guy that was an intern for 2 years at a particular club, and the Southeast scout, he leaves, he gets fired, he goes to another club, whatever, and they just stick that guy in, which, it's fine. Youth is fine, there's no problem with that, but in an area that's that important, you would think you would have a more experienced scout through there, but doesn't always happen. How much influence does Blesto and National, their lists, have on your scouts visited? It has it all to do. If you belong to a combine, I think, like I said, I think it was about 25, 26 teams out of the 32 belong to either Blesto or National. You go to those, that's what you start with as an area scout. When I had the Midwest, I start with that. So I go to Akron and Ball State, but I don't go to Toledo because there's nobody on that list. So you better hope that the guy's on the list. Now, you might hear about a player or whatever, but you cannot go to every single college. You can't go to Ohio Wesleyan, and you just can't. Now, if there's a player on that list, as I said before, you make a big, broad list as a combine scout. If you're not fitting in that area, probably someone's not going to come see you. I mean, that's just the way it is. So, yeah, they do have a pretty good influence on where scouts go, and and they can, I guess, fall through the cracks if the combine scout doesn't do a good job. When I was a combine scout, and I was 30-something years old when I was a combine scout. A lot of combine scouts now are 25, and it's a lot of work to write somebody from Concord College, in West Virginia State, in Ohio Wesleyan, and wherever you want, because it's just another report. You got to get a height, weight, speed on them. You got to get a Wonderlic on them. You got to do, and it's a lot of work. But if you're doing your job right, that's the way you do it, and then you send it out, and those guys feel pretty comfortable. Hey, this is my area. No one's at Toledo this year or wherever. But they kind of get in trouble almost if all of a sudden a guy from Toledo is a player, even a free agent. I mean, you got to write him. So a lot of times it depends on the combine scout in that regard. It says, if a CFL team is interested, given the limits on scouting staffs, and then the GM was up in Winnipeg, and then there was me in the States. So I had stuff coming in from Oregon, Ohio Wesleyan, Minnesota, wherever. I mean, I had tapes and, you know, agents and, you know, and so I just drank a lot, I guess. You know, I mean, I just, you know, but it was funny because I just said, you know what, I'm just going to do the best I can. And really, that wasn't a great setup, to be quite frank with you, but that's just the way it was. But even other CFL teams, I think Montreal has like 2 or 3 full-time guys and like 3 part-time guys. Again, we had me, no part-time guys, no nothing. So Tabor will probably tell you, you know, I need you to do that, right, Tabor? I mean, it just, and so, you know, he's seen me drink a lot because of that. No, but there are limited. So this is what I would say. This is really important too. Whoever you're representing, and really this is more for the CFL, because the NFL scouts, they may not look at this as much. NFL scouts go out in August, and let's say they have the Midwest. They go through Bowling Green and all the MAC schools, and if Michigan lets you in early, in August they'll go in there and they're watching junior tape in August because they haven't played yet. But they're watching it, they cover their area and usually go back a second time. Okay, so by the end of the season, senior year, they don't need to see a tape and bios and all that. They really don't. The CFL, to me, if you want a guy to be looked at by the CFL, you need to make sure you have a good bio, a good solid bio, 20 or 30 plays on tape. You say, well, you know, are they going to make a decision off that? Maybe. And production. Make sure you got production, stats, production, bio, you know, where from high school on out. Did he transfer from wherever, junior college, and then he double transfer, you know, whatever it is, that made a big difference to me. I wanted to know how old he was. All of did he throw the javelin in high school? All that stuff kind of made a difference to me. What kind of an athlete was he? He could have been a soccer player, whatever. And then obviously tape. And what are you going to do with the tape? Obviously it's a highlight tape. If he's a receiver, he better not have any drops on that tape. You know, he just better not. But you better at least have something to package, because these CFL guys, because of their limited staffs, they don't have that much time. They don't have that much time. So, you know, and his best 5 plays that he's ever had in his life should be in the first 5 plays. I mean, that's just, I mean, that might, you know, that might be obvious to you, but to some people, it's not. You know, I mean, they get, you know, they don't do that. So make sure you have a good package for your client. And that's what a lot of CFL teams will look at. I know that's what I look at a lot. And you can, I know there might be a lot of questions about the CFL. Like, I'm just going to bring this one up because I get it a lot. Should I send my client to one of these workouts? Okay? And we had about 3 or 4 workouts a year. We didn't charge the scouts. I mean, we didn't charge the players. I told Joe, I said, I don't want to charge these guys. I think we're exploiting them, and I just didn't want to do it. So we have what we call specifically guys invited. We didn't put it out on the internet, open workout, all that kind of stuff, because it's BS. A lot of it's BS. Quite frankly, it's BS. They got to drop $100 down. They go through a couple of 40s and maybe one other thing, and then they cut 50 of them. Then they do something else for another hour. Then they cut another 25. At least, and tell me if I'm wrong. The agents can tell me if I'm wrong, but because I have a lot of agents and I had a lot of players say, "Wow, you know, that wasn't good. It was 100 guys there, 10 guys in the line, and all that." I personally would only go to those, and they do, just so you know, if they waive the fee. If your guy's good enough, if your player's good enough, and you've packaged him, I use the word you've packaged him, his bio, his tape, production, all the intangibles, whatever you can get on him, and you give it to, and he invites him to one of those, or he's going to go to one, fine. Waive his fee, if he's that good. No, okay, I'm not going to waive it. I don't know if I'm going to go from Pennsylvania down to Miami, drop $100 down. You got to get him there. He's got to get a motel. He's got to eat, whatever it costs you, and then he's only there for an hour or 2 hours. If you see how many percentage-wise, how many actual players get signed out of those, not too many. Now, and I'll just say it quickly because I'm not in the business anymore. I mean, they let the president go, the GM go, and myself go after we went to the Grey Cup 2 years ago. Bang, and we're out of there 2 years later. But the way we did it, and it was more, I thought it was more valid, is it was a lot of work that I did, by position, I said, I want to invite this guy, I want to invite this guy in. So I did that for months at a time. And then we had 3 or 4 workouts, one in Atlanta, one in Dallas, sometimes LA, and one in Charlotte, or Greensboro, North Carolina. And these were all guys that I really liked on tape. I mean, I really liked them. Doesn't cost you any money. Now, you got to get yourself there. And I told them what they were going to do, the height, weight, speed, 40s, short shuttle, and then we did some drills. So we'd have 25, 30 guys show up, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. And we'd sign 2, 3, 4 guys out of that. 10%, that's a lot. That's a lot to sign out of a workout like that. We signed 2 guys from Mercyhurst last year. And one was a receiver that was in Tampa Bay's camp a couple of years ago, and then one was a undersized, strong safety that we played at linebacker up in the CFL, and he was going to be a backup. The guy in front of him got hurt. He started the whole season and had a hell of a year from Mercyhurst. And he, they're trying to re-sign him again. I mean, after this year, they'll try to re-sign him again. So, and he's a long snapper. So, packaging is a big deal. And if you were going to ask me that question about those, probably all the CFL teams I'd need security getting out of here because they'd be pissed. Because they make a lot of money. Think about it. 100 guys at $100 a pop. Maybe it cost them $5 grand to rent everything and do all that. It's a lot. And they do 6 of them, 10 of them. So I would just be careful of those. I wouldn't say don't go, but really be careful about if you do go, see if they'll waive it. When I was with the Jags and the Browns, as well as Winnipeg, how much attention do you do to the AFL teams? Not much. When I was in the NFL, of course it's been a little while, we didn't do too much with AFL teams. Now that's gotten better, and that's handled by the pro side, just so you know, not the college side, the pro side. The pro director probably has a couple of interns that scours through the AFL, the guys that are the better returners or the better players, and they go strictly by height, weight, speed, first, and then they watch tape. And then if they're good enough, then they bring it to their pro director or assistant pro director. So I don't think, can they come out of there? Yeah. There's been guys come out of the AFL. But generally speaking, it's tougher. Once you get in that AFL, it's tougher. So, and in the CFL, I did a little more work. See, I look at anything. Any kind of tape. I'm not looking at grade school tape. But I mean, I'll look at your tape. I'll look at your tape as much as I can. And so I'd look at AFL tape, but it would have to be on a. If it was an offensive lineman, he had to be a big joker. He had to be a big guy to do it. We took a guy that went to Purdue. I can't remember his name. He got drafted in like the 3rd round by Detroit. Played 2 or 3 years. Then he went to Cleveland for a year, broke his foot, and he had like a pin put in his foot. So he was a legitimate guy. He was 6'7". He came out the same year. Who was the quarterback that's? I think he's the backup with Chicago now that played at Purdue. I just can't believe I can't remember his name. But anyway, he played with him. So he was in the AFL. I mean, he was like 27, 28. He was in the AFL. We took him and he started 2 years for us. So, you do get guys like that, but not too much with the AFL. Well, okay, they're talking about, asking about do many NFL teams go and cover the CFL? Yes and no. The 2 teams that cover them the most are Miami. And Miami's got at least 3 starters from the CFL. They got Thick Penn, they got a couple other guys. Of course, Cameron Wake. There's not that many Cameron Wakes, but not many send their scouts up there. There's about 3 teams that send scouts up there. Indianapolis does a good job, really, because Ryan Grigson, the GM, cut his teeth, and his brother cut his teeth in the CFL, as far as scouting goes. So there are some teams, as a matter of fact, they just took our middle linebacker, who started for 3 to 4 years, because he was only, he's only there 2 years. Enoch Mwamba just signed with Indianapolis. Okay, so he was with us for 2 years, did really well, was one of the better players in the league. He's with Indy. And Indy has another linebacker that starts from, that's from the CFL. So there are some teams that put more stock in it, other teams, they say they cover it, but they really don't cover it as well as they should. And I've kind of told a lot of my contacts in the NFL, you know what, we're not really doing a very good job in general of covering the CFL. Is there a lot of Cameron Wakes? Probably not, okay? But there's a lot of players that could be good depth to NFL teams. And you'll hear at mid-season, oh, we got this guy hurt, we don't have any players, the guys are playing people that are not very good. Well, you get a guy that's 25, 26 and has played professional football, and it is a really good league, even though it's slightly different in some ways. It's a really good league. Wouldn't you rather have a guy that's 6'6", 320, that's played up there for 2 or 3 years, than a guy that's bounced around on a practice squad, has never been in a game, and then all of a sudden you got to put him in a game mid-season, he might have to play the rest of the year. So that's sort of my approach to those NFL guys, but it's just a little more money. And you'd be surprised, as much money as the NFL has, and they got a ton, and you know that, they really short some things that, you know, that shouldn't be, as far as evaluating players and paying scouts and those kind of things. It says, let's say it's February or March, and you're a new agent. Is there value sending emails to scouts promoting a client? Again, yeah, I guess you could. You know, obviously, I would hit the hell out of CFL scouts right now. And I know every one of you are thinking, my guy's going to be an NFL guy. What are you talking about? Well, that's fine, okay, if he's going to be an NFL guy. But, you know, if you have to be, I would do this. Unless I had a top 2 or 3 round person and you felt pretty strong about that, I'd package the same guy that you think is going to be an NFL guy. And what's the problem? Just package him and send it to every CFL team, a CFL scout that you know, or whatever. Because let's say he does go get drafted late, or maybe he's a free agent, and then he goes to camp and he gets cut. Well, now they don't know enough. If you didn't do the work ahead of time, they don't know enough about him to go ahead and take this guy. I mean, I know it's hard to do. If your player has a pro day, let's say he has a pro day March 30th, and he's from Purdue, okay, great. If he's a lower level guy, free agent, I would invite teams. I don't care if you have to do it by yourself or hopefully invite CFL teams to that pro day. I've been to Purdue's pro day. I've been to Indiana's pro day, Illinois, of course Louisville's because I'm right there. But I mean Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee. I go to their pro days so that these low-level guys, I already have a watch on. I already have a height, weight, speed on. I already have it. I said, no, this guy's not going to fit. No, this guy's not going to fit. I said, okay, this guy right here. If he doesn't get drafted, we're going to go after him. Or if he gets drafted, I don't think he's going to make it. You know, just my gut feeling. Well, he doesn't make it. Bang! You pick up the phone and you call that agent. And 90% of the time, that agent won't want to send him up to the CFL the first year, because every NFL team that cuts you, when you're walking out the door, they say, "Hey, we're going to call you. You're the first guy. You're the first guy. I'm telling you." And, you know, it's fine. That doesn't happen that much. Every once in a while it does. So we don't see him for a good year, year and a half. A lot of the work that I did, it didn't show for a year, year and a half. But I was just telling someone, there was a player at Akron. I went to Akron's pro day. Big kid named Griggs, 6'5", about 250, was a tight end at Iowa, transferred to Akron, was a defensive end for 2 years. A good player, wasn't a great player, but he was a good player, but he had the measurables. He could run, he was 6'5", he was 250. That's pretty big for a defensive end in the CFL, okay, because he's got the length to him and all that. Well, he goes to Jacksonville. As a matter of fact, because I went to 12, 13 camps, okay, I covered about 14 teams. And I look at those back-end guys, and they said, well, he's probably going to make our practice squad. Well, this kid doesn't make the practice squad. So I said, okay, I'll call, but most of the time the agent will say, we're going to wait, we're going to wait. And I understand that. You know, the player wants to wait, the agent wants to wait, there's more money, no question. The kid said, call him kid, because they're all kids to me, but the kid and the agent said, you know what, we want to go up there. That was August. I said, okay, when we expand our roster, we expanded it. We took him up there, and he was on the practice squad for a couple of weeks, and then the last 3 weeks he played. He did okay, but he got a feel for the CFL game. They got a feel for him, so, you know, they want him back and all that. So don't think the CFL is not an option. But, and did anybody have a question about the CFL just in general? Like, it's a 2-year commitment. You sign a contract, it's a 2-year commitment. Okay, so a lot of people don't want to do that. But so this young man, he signed a contract and he got activated.
he was only activated for 6 weeks, just this past fall, that counts as a year, okay? So now he only has to be up there for 1 more year. Let's say he gets 10 or 15 pounds heavier, he gets 15 sacks, he's going to get a decent contract in the NFL, if that happens, okay? I'd be glad to talk to anybody that has a question about the CFL, NFL, whatever, coaching, anything, because as Neil said, I'm seasoned. I'm very seasoned. Yeah, just know this, and I kind of rambled probably more than I wanted to. The NFL scouts, all these guys here, they know about your guy already. If he's a senior, they really know about him pretty much, unless, again, he's from Concord College in West Virginia, he was a late bloomer or something, that might be different. But if he's from a major college or even a MAC school or any place, they know about him. They've seen a ton of tape on him already, okay? So, but the CFL people, they may not know. They may not know. If you were an agent and you wanted to begin building relationships with scouts, how would you go about it? How would you approach newer scouts? A lot of scouts, probably including myself, when I scouted, you're not going to take this right, but we would walk the other way. Oh shoot, there's a scout. There's an agent. You know, I mean, you probably get to some of that. And then I was as cordial as I could be. I think if you're polite and you're direct and short, then I think that you should approach whoever you can at an East-West All-Star game, here, any place. And I always kind of liked when a guy, an agent would give me almost like a postcard. And he just, these are my 5 guys, just a real brief height, weight, speed, whatever, from Michigan, whatever it is. And then, maybe on the bottom, your information and, tape on request. Again, for CFL guys, that's really important because they get inundated with so much stuff and there's not enough to cover. So I would say you could use social media now. I'm not a big social media guy because I'm old as hell, but social media, you could LinkedIn and do all that. Facebook, you can maybe do that. Because a lot of these scouts are younger. They maybe spend their time there. Me, I want to go shoot pool and drink a beer when I have time. So I don't know how that. But I would use as much of yourself and have them trust you. If I trust somebody, like I trust Neil. Neil and I have known each other for a couple of years. We haven't done a lot of stuff together, but the stuff we have done together, he trusts me and I trust him. Because basically, if I say I'm going to do this, that's what I'm going to do. That's a basic thing in life. But if you tell a scout, this guy is this, if you say, look, I'm getting up on the table for this guy. This guy can play. He can run. Well, and then if he looks at the tape and he's getting caught from behind every other time, your credibility, he's going, oh, geez, I don't want to waste time. Now, the next time you give him 2 or 3 people, he's going to just take it and he's going to put it in file 13. So, credibility is a big deal. And so if you might have to bypass 10 guys to get 1, then you might have to bypass another 6 guys to get 2. Now you've got 2, but those 2 can play. That's much better than having 15 and 14 out of the 15 can't play.